My wife just told me she's pregnant, but I know the baby isn't mine, because I'm sterile. Still, I'm pretending everything's fine. I'm a 38-year-old man, and my wife, who's 33, and I have been married for 2 years now. We were together for 3 years before tying the knot. Honestly, she pushed for marriage more than I did, but I went along with it to make her happy. About a year ago, she suggested we start trying for a baby. It wasn't really something I was pushing for, but I agreed. Unfortunately, it turned into a difficult and stressful experience. On the channel you will find even more interesting stories. Subscribe and like. The process took a serious toll on my mental health, and her attitude began to shift. She became cold and harsh with me, and it wore me down. Eventually, I decided to get tested, just to rule out any fertility issues on my end. A few days later, the doctor gave me the results. I was sterile. The news crushed me. Even though the idea of having a child wasn't originally mine, I had grown to really want it. I had started picturing myself as a father, imagining what our life would look like with a child. Hearing that it could never happen biologically for me, it broke something inside me. What made it even harder was the idea of telling my wife. She'd already been acting cruel while we were trying to conceive, and I was terrified of how she'd react if she learned I was the reason it wasn't happening. I kept putting it off, waiting for the right moment to break the news. But then, something completely unexpected happened. Just 4 days after I learned I was sterile, she came to me with big news. My heart was in my throat. I thought maybe she'd found out the truth somehow. But instead, she told me she was pregnant. I was stunned. Absolutely stunned. And while she was overjoyed and already celebrating, I sat there numb, trying to process what she had just said. I forced myself to act excited, to smile and play along, because I didn't want her to suspect anything. But inside, I was spiraling. The next day, I went in for a second test, just to be sure. The results came back the same. I was completely sterile. That confirmed what I already feared. My wife had cheated on me. There was no other explanation. What made the betrayal worse was knowing that if she tried any kind of fertility treatment, she would have needed money. And since I'm the only one working, there's no way she could have done that behind my back. Which meant this pregnancy wasn't the result of any medical procedure. It was from another man. The realization was horrifying. But I didn't react. I didn't say anything. I kept it all bottled up while she went ahead and planned a huge celebration to announce the pregnancy. She was glowing with happiness. Meanwhile, I was breaking apart inside. I couldn't even bring myself to tell anyone, not my family, not my friends. It was too personal, too painful. And I still hadn't confronted her. Partly because too much time had passed, but also because I needed to know the truth. If I confronted her too early, she might just leave, and I'd never find out who the real father was. But as fate would have it, I got my answer the day of the party. The event was packed, family, friends, even a few of my colleagues. She'd invited almost everyone we knew, including one of our neighbors who lives right across the street. He's a 27-year-old guy, younger than both of us. Honestly? He's a good-looking guy. Better looking than me, and probably better looking than most. He works as a model, still trying to break into the industry, but clearly he has the looks for it. He lives with his aunt, who owns the house across from ours. He moved to our neighborhood to be closer to the city. His own family lives far away. From the moment he arrived, my wife seemed to have a soft spot for him. She'd cook for him and his aunt, especially when they were just settling in. He came over for dinner a few times, and we chatted casually about his career. He's articulate, thoughtful, and, like my wife, a literature major. The two of them clicked instantly. I never thought much of it at the time. He seemed like a decent guy, polite and friendly, and I had no reason to question my wife's loyalty. But something changed the night of the party. As soon as he walked through the door, my wife's entire face lit up. She went straight to him, faster than she greeted anyone else, and their hug lingered just a little too long. No one else seemed to notice, but I saw it for what it was. There was a connection there, something beyond friendship. I could feel it in my gut. I needed confirmation. So I slipped away from the party, pretending I needed to use the bathroom, but instead headed for the bedroom. I knew she'd been spending a lot of time on her laptop lately, always typing, always busy. Any time I'd ask what she was doing, she'd turn the screen away and tell me she was working on her novel. That had been going on for months, and I'd respected her space. But now, I was almost certain that novel didn't exist. Luckily, the laptop wasn't password protected. I got in and started digging. A few days earlier, I'd gone through her phone while she was asleep but hadn't found anything unusual. The laptop, though, held the truth. Hidden within her browser was access to a second email account I'd never seen before. When I opened it, everything became horrifyingly clear. The emails between her and our neighbor were full of romantic messages, open confessions of love. He'd used his real name, so I had no doubt it was him. And then, in the more recent exchanges, I found out she had already told him about the pregnancy. His response? Not what she was hoping for. He was upset, even angry. Their communication had stopped after that, likely because he wanted to walk away from the situation. But my wife wasn't about to let him go that easily. Then I found the worst message of all. In it, she told him she had spoken to a lawyer friend who was going to help her file for divorce, right after the baby was born. Her plan was laid out plainly. She had pushed for us to have a baby not out of love, but because she wanted to secure alimony and child support. That way, once the divorce was finalized, she could run off with him, free and financially supported. Reading that felt like being punched in the stomach. Even now, I get nauseous just remembering it. Still, I forced myself to stay calm. I took photos of every incriminating email with my phone, then carefully closed everything and put her laptop back exactly where it had been. Honestly, it wasn't even the affair that hurt the most. It was the fact that she tried to manipulate me, using the idea of a child to trap me into a legal and financial commitment, only to discard me after. That kind of betrayal is on another level entirely. The idea that she'd used me, had plotted this whole scheme just to bankroll her fantasy life with a broke boyfriend, was beyond disturbing. It wasn't just betrayal, it felt unhinged. And the worst part? She'd pulled it off flawlessly. I hadn't seen a single crack in her act. Her joy, her affection, the glows she wore every day of that pregnancy, it was all an illusion. The more she smiled, the more it sickened me. But I wasn't going to let her walk away untouched. She needed to feel a fraction of the pain and humiliation she'd dumped on me. So, I made a decision. I'd stay silent. I'd play along. And when the moment came, I'd hit her with everything. Call me cold, call me calculated, I don't care. I knew what I had to do. For 9 long months, I played the role of the doting husband and the excited father-to-be. I went to every doctor's appointment, reminded her to take her prenatal vitamins, and never once let my mask slip. Every time she lied to my face, pretending we were a happy couple, it only fueled my resolve. I wasn't just waiting, I was preparing. And then the day arrived. A few days ago, she went into labor. I was a mess of nerves, understandably, considering the circumstances, but I kept it together and drove her to the hospital myself. I'd called her parents already, but I didn't reach out to mine. I didn't want to risk them seeing the storm that was about to break. Her parents had a bit of a drive ahead of them, which gave us a quiet window alone. That's when I chose to detonate everything. Once she was settled in the hospital room, I calmly told her I was going to step out for a minute, to call our neighbor and let him know she was in labor. Instantly, her face froze. She stammered, saying it wasn't necessary, that she didn't want a stranger in the room while giving birth. That's when I smiled and pulled out 2 things I'd brought with me, the results of my fertility test, and our divorce papers. I'd filed just a few days before and kept the documents on me, waiting for the perfect time. She flipped through them slowly, still trying to piece things together. I laid it out for her. I'm sterile. Always have been. The baby couldn't possibly be mine. I told her about the emails, the secret account, the whole affair. And right there, in that hospital room, the truth finally hit her. The look on her face, shock, fear, guilt, it was unforgettable. I turned around and walked out before she could say anything. My heart was pounding so fast I thought I might need a hospital bed too. But I didn't stop. I stepped outside and, true to my word, called our neighbor to tell him the woman he knocked up was about to give birth. Then I hung up before he could say a word. I waited outside in my car for her family to arrive. The moment I saw her father's vehicle pull in, I drove off without a glance back. I even powered down my phone. I didn't want to hear another word from her, or him. I'd planned ahead. My bags had been packed and hidden in the trunk for weeks. I drove to a small motel just outside of town, checked in, and spent the rest of the day watching TV, drinking beer, and trying to clear my head. I slept surprisingly well that night, maybe for the first time in months. The charade was over. I was free. The next morning, I finally turned my phone back on. Hundreds of messages waited for me, mostly from her, some from him. I didn't read a single one. But I did check a few texts from my parents and brother. I guess she had reached out to them when she realized I'd vanished. I decided to call my parents after some time, letting them know I'd be coming back home soon. I also asked if they could bring my brother, so I could explain everything to them. They deserved to know what was really going on. When I arrived at their house, my brother was already there, and everyone looked a bit confused and frustrated. Of course, it made sense. To them, I had missed the birth of my child, and they had missed their grandchild's birth too. But I sat them down and shared everything, my reasons for doing what I did, and by the time I finished, they were silent. I expected a barrage of questions and accusations, but all my dad said was that he hoped nothing worse would come from this. The others didn't add anything, so things stayed calm. That was a few days ago, and while my family hasn't said much since, my wife has been relentless in accusing me of ruining her experience of becoming a mother. She's been trying to reach me nonstop through calls and texts. Even my neighbor texted me a few hours ago, saying my wife was upset and that we should put our differences aside for her sake and at least try to work things out. I can't believe the nerve of these people, still acting like this is some minor issue. In his message, my neighbor mentioned how my wife had started falling back in love with me during her pregnancy, which surprised both of them. He said I should give our marriage a second chance. But I saw right through it. If she had truly started loving me again, then why is my neighbor still in the picture? I don't understand why they think I'm that naive. My wife is mostly angry that I knew the truth all along but stayed with her, pretending everything was fine while she was cheating. She accuses me of lying to her and misleading her throughout her pregnancy, knowing the baby wasn't mine. It's been almost a week since the baby was born, and I'm still staying in a hotel. I haven't gone to see my wife, nor do I plan to. She keeps texting and calling, but I've made it clear I don't want to speak to her. I haven't blocked her yet, but I did block my neighbor after he tried texting me again, reminding me that my wife is still hoping I'll come back. I'm sure the only reason he's still around is because they both want me to forgive her so that she can get something from the divorce settlement and alimony. Both of them are pretty much unemployed. My wife was a stay-at-home spouse, which I respected, but it turns out she wasn't just taking care of the house, she was cheating on me the whole time, and that's something I can't forgive. Just to clarify, I didn't ask her to quit her job after we married. In fact, I supported her decision when she chose to stay home and manage things while I worked. It was her choice to quit working, and I was more than capable of supporting both of us. I was doing well financially, so it never bothered me that she wanted to stay home. Now I'm confident that my lawyer will help me avoid paying alimony once we prove that she was cheating. I'm optimistic it will be pretty straightforward, and honestly, I'm looking forward to it. As for my neighbor, he's still struggling to secure good-paying modeling jobs, so trying to juggle his own expenses, my wife's, and the baby's all at once is going to be impossible for them. Even if they pool all their resources, it's still going to be a nightmare for them, and I honestly wish them the best of luck with that. The most important thing for me is that I'm finally out of this mess, and won't have to give them anything, especially not my time or attention. I'm hoping my wife comes to her senses and realizes she can't keep dragging this out by contesting the divorce. But given her complete lack of logic in this situation, I'm not holding my breath. I'm prepared for her to make things even more difficult. The photos of the emails from her secret account are safely stored on my phone and backed up on my laptop, so I'm not worried about her deleting anything. Even if she tries to erase her account, those images can't be wiped away. I know I'm covered. Worst case scenario, I'll pay her the alimony, but at least I won't have to deal with her. She should count herself lucky that I'm giving her the time to vacate our house without forcing her to leave. Since the house is in my name, I could have had her evicted, but I'm choosing not to. I'm giving her the chance to move out on her own terms. I'm hoping for the best, but I'm prepared if things take longer to settle. Update. I was right all along. My wife is acting like a complete fool and has decided to negotiate over the settlement I offered. The settlement was more than fair in my eyes. It was basically just the amount she spent throughout the marriage, and I still felt that was generous. I don't even understand what she's expecting to happen here. Does she think a miracle is going to change the outcome of this divorce? Whatever, it's her life. Good luck to her. She texted me yesterday to let me know she had vacated the house, so I thought maybe she had moved in with her parents or something. To my surprise and disappointment, she didn't do that. Instead, she moved just across the street into our neighbor's house. Now I'll have to see both her and her boyfriend every single day. I seriously considered going back to living in the hotel to avoid them, but I decided against it. This is my house, and I have every right to stay here. I'm not going to pack up and leave just because they're trying to make my life uncomfortable. I do wonder why she didn't just move in with her parents. Living with our neighbor is only going to hurt her in the divorce case. She's just making things worse for herself, and I don't think she even realizes it. But I didn't dwell on it too much because, while scrolling through the unread messages on my phone, I came across one from my wife's father. I hadn't responded to several people who texted me in the past few days, and his message got lost in the shuffle. When I read it, it was a long text, apologizing for his daughter's actions. He expressed how strongly he disapproved of everything she had done. That meant a lot to me and validated everything I'd been feeling about this entire situation. I almost cried reading his words, but I held it in because I didn't want to let her actions break me. In his message, he apologized for his daughter's behavior and told me that he had cut her off after she told him she planned to contest the divorce. I had a hard time understanding why my wife was acting the way she was. Everything she was doing was going to backfire on her. She was making decisions that didn't align with reality, and in the end, it was only going to harm her even more. Either she's really that clueless, or I'm still convinced that my wife might have some twisted tricks left up her sleeve, but I'm hoping she doesn't. I wouldn't put it past her, though. She's definitely shown how low she can go. This whole living situation is bound to create some complications. I'm sure they're going to try to make me uncomfortable, or even jealous, but I've made up my mind not to let them provoke me. I know they'll use whatever they can against me, and I'm not going to give them that satisfaction. In the grand scheme of things, though, I'm saving a lot of money since I'm not paying for a hotel anymore. It's been a month since the divorce negotiations started, and so far, things are going terribly for my wife. I've been able to prove that she's been cheating on me, and she's made my job easier by literally moving in with the guy I accused her of having an affair with. There's no way she can deny it now. She tried to make up some ridiculous story about how I was an alcoholic, which supposedly made me sterile, and that's why she had the affair. She said I became cruel and bitter when we were trying to conceive. But that didn't hold up for long, because it's common knowledge that I quit drinking last year when we started trying for a baby, and I haven't had a drop of alcohol since. I don't even know why she thought that would work. It was pretty foolish on her part. I guess she was just scrambling for an excuse since everything she initially planned had fallen apart, and now she was too busy playing mother to come up with any more devious plans. Plus, her baby daddy wasn't exactly a mastermind either, so there they were, both looking pretty pathetic. By now, we both know that the chances of her getting any alimony are slim to none. I guess she must have told her boyfriend that too, because a few days ago, she was kicked out of his house with their baby. That's right, I heard a lot of shouting and screaming coming from their place, and within minutes, I saw my wife and the baby being shoved out of the house. The guy was yelling the most awful things at her, and calling her every name imaginable. I was watching this unfold from my living room, and as soon as I saw him shove my wife out while she was holding the baby, I rushed outside to help. Whatever animosity I felt towards her, I couldn't just stand by and let an innocent baby suffer because of something that wasn't even his fault. By the time I got to their doorstep, he'd already slammed the door in my face, but my wife and the baby were both crying on the porch. I immediately took the baby in my arms and grabbed my wife's hand, leading them back to my house across the street. I called my father-in-law to come pick her up, and within an hour, he showed up to take her away, once again thanking me for stepping in. In that hour, my wife had cried almost nonstop, and I found myself calming both her and the baby down. I considered calling the cops, but she convinced me to let it go since she didn't want any more trouble. She kept apologizing, saying that she had been so desperate to be with the man she loved that she lost all her self-respect and morals. She admitted she was truly sorry for everything and told me she would accept whatever happens next. She assured me she wouldn't fight the divorce anymore, so it's looking like it's going to get finalized sooner than expected. Honestly, I hope she presses charges eventually and takes the time to heal herself, but I did everything I could. I acted decently, and I don't regret any of it. At the end of the day, I know I did the right thing.